So I came back to Atlanta and started watching my end of the year countdown. I just rented a bunch of movies from Videodrome, so you'll be seeing a bunch of videos from those after I mainline them. But first, handful more films that I watched since coming back from Los Angeles. The first one was If Beale Street Could Talk. It's based on a novel by James Baldwin, and it's written and directed by Barry Jenkins. Barry Jenkins was on hand here in Atlanta. He just happened to be here to do an intro and a Q&A after the film. So that added a lot of wonderful context to the film. This is my least favorite James Baldwin that I've read. I have not read all of Baldwin, but from what I've read, it is my least favorite. And I had some reservations um, because I felt like there were aspects of the film's story that were not handled well by Baldwin. Thankfully, in updating the novel, even though it's still set when it's set, he allowed it a bit more nuance, specifically in the if you don't know the plot, it has to do with a man being accused of a rape he did not commit. In the book, you never really get a lot of empathy for the woman who is accusing him. Um, it's really not, it's really icky, to be honest. And thankfully, in this version, there are bits of it that are still icky, but you have the women discussing, hey, we think you were raped. We really believe that, but we don't think it was, our boy. And that's missing from the novel. And I was like, how are they going to handle this? And thankfully, they added some discussion both with the woman and with the women themselves that really fixed that for me. Um, there were moments of just, poetic beauty. Obviously, Jenkins is a very poetic filmmaker. He's got that score from Nicholas Britell, much like the Moonlight score. It's orchestral and sweeping and filled with romance. Um, he uses some similar shots. You'll see some very similar shot compositions from Moonlight, People Against Walls, etc. But the shots in this that you saw in the trailer, and I particularly liked what Barry had to say about why he used them, were the shots where the people are looking into each other's eyes, and the way it's shot is they're looking into your eyes. And he was specifically saying that he shot it that way so that people who are watching this film, if they were people of color, they felt like they were seeing themselves. And if they were white people who aren't used to looking at black people in the face, in the eyes, that they would get that feeling for once and perhaps pass on empathy. As as oft quoted, cinema is an empathy machine. And this was his way of humanizing people who should not have to be humanized, but humanizing people to people who just don't take the time to ever look people in the face who don't look like them. And I thought that was a really great reasoning for that in terms of knowing you're watching a film. I don't know that it necessarily works as a device for storytelling purposes, but at the same time, a film is a film. And if you have that big of a platform to sort of push your ideas artistically, you might as well. Whether it serves the film in general or not, I don't know. I don't know that it 100% does in terms of the plot, but that's okay. An artist is going to tell their POV in their way, and you can feel it in both of these films that he has something to say, and he is using cinema to say it. And I hope, if anything, it gets people reading more Baldwin, much like um, the documentary that came out a couple years ago. That said, If Beale Street Could Talk is my least favorite Baldwin. So like, go past that. Read No Name on the Street or some of these others that, honestly, I like Baldwin's nonfiction a lot more than I like his fiction. So maybe that's my bias there. Beautiful performances. Again, Regina King is one of the great actresses of her generation and any generation, going all the way back to like Jerry Maguire. The leads were probably my least favorite people. This was KiKi, Layne, and Stephan James. What I will say about KiKi Layne, the way they contrast her memories, so it's told not in non-linear, her memories of her time with her boyfriend Fonny, um, you see her idealized because she's idealizing this time in her head. And then when you see her going through the shit she goes through as he's accused, as she's dealing with the unfair justice system, you see her as the real woman that she is and not this idealized girl that she once was. I liked that visually. Um, Colman Domingo plays her father. He is one of my favorite actors to come out in the last few years, and apparently he's been acting forever. I was looking him up, and I was like, oh shit. I mean, he did a lot of theater, and he's been in a ton of movies, and somehow I've only noticed him in the last few years because he was in this and Mudbound last year. And then Teyonah Parris is the older sister, and she's also quite good. So this film has a lot to say again about race, about police brutality, about the generational um, changes of the country, about the diversity within the Black community itself, and I think it's a lovely film. I didn't like it as much as I love Moonlight. And Moonlight felt much more personal, and it felt much more just deeply romantic to me. And I think that's because it had a specific character trait. You can go back and watch my Moonlight reviews that spoke deeply to me in a way that I was unable to connect to quite the same way in this film. And part of that could be because again I read the book and I was didn't fall in love with the characters in the book either. Um, but I think Jenkins is a great filmmaker, and I look forward to his work that he's working on a TV show right now, and he's just got a lot going on. So I'm looking forward to that. This is If Beale Street Could Talk. It's in theaters right now. It goes wide next week, so you should be able to see it pretty much anywhere. But tweet at the Twitter account and tell them you want it in your town, and they'll let you know if it's coming or not. Didn't love it as much as Moonlight. Didn't love it as much as a lot of films this year, but it's a great film, and it's If Beale Street Could Talk.